Guess what? I'm back on the Chevelle again today. And keeping with the theme that we've done with the rest of this car, I'm going to call this more of kind of like, instead of a resto mod, a retro mod. So we've done these upgrades and we are going to do another budget-minded upgrade to the rear suspension of this to get rid of body roll. Now that we've taken care of the front end handling and the brakes, as well as the back end disc brake kit, what we want to do is we want to look at these control arms. Now, there's no rear sway bar in this. There's one in the front. And if we add a rear sway bar to this, we're going to be able to corner this car a lot better, make it drive more like a modern vehicle. And that's the purpose of this car. We are keeping with the original factory wheels. We're keeping a small block in it. We have to upgrade the one in here. We're going to do some upgrades to the tranny, the differential, and the upgrades so far. So hopefully you're looking for those videos. And let's carry on today with looking at the kit we're going to be putting in. We could have easily called up the parts store and ordered some new control arms for the back of this thing and just slap that in with a new rear suspension kit. But keeping with that theme again of retro, we have decided to buy this kit. Now, this kit is a rear sway bar kit from Muscle Factory, and it's an inexpensive kit. And the nice thing is it gives you the parts to be able to do what they would have done from the factory with like the SS cars or the more deluxe cars that would have came with the sway bar. And doing that as well, we're going to be pulling the control arms out, and we're going to be using this energy suspension kit here. And this is the upgrade bushings for the rear suspension. And this is a GM A-body control arm kit. There's the part number. And I think it's probably worth it to go under the car and talk about why we actually need to put this part of the kit in. This car is a factory non-sway bar car. So what we have in the car is rear suspension that's called a triangulated 4-link. Now, I'm sure you've heard of 4-links before, and we'll talk about that as well. So this is the factory control arm. So this is the lower one of the links. The other side, we have another link, and then up in the top, we have these links as well. Now, 4-link, like you would normally hear it in a race car, is not triangulated. So the reason that, one reason it's different, I guess, is we don't need extra bars to hold the diff straight in the car, because these bars create a triangle to hold the diff straight, as well as on a race car, these bars are going to be made out of tubing, and they're adjustable, and they have adjustable mounts. Now, you can buy some adjustability kits for these cars, but this is not a race car. This is that retro mod. So we'll get back to the reason that we're talking about these control arms and with the sway bar, what the difference was. So originally, actually, I'm going to throw up the sway bar so that we can chit chat with it in here. I just wedged this sway bar in just to give you an example and be able to talk with this bar in here about what's going on with the rear suspension. So with a factory sway bar car, it was sitting in this spot. This sway bar is very similar to what the factory one looked like. And what would happen is this gets bolted solid to this arm. And with this suspension, if it was, say, to go into a dip or around a corner where the suspension goes up, what it's trying to do is twist this bar. So it does twist it a little bit, but it takes and transfers that same motion onto this side. So if that is twisting down on that side or up or however it is, it's trying to mirror it on the other side. Now, what that does is it actually takes and makes the car, when you're going through a bump, or probably more realistic, when you are hard in a corner, it's going to keep this car from body rolling. Now, there is some serious force involved in that. And if we were to have this stay open like this, which I've seen lots of cars come in, people just bolt these in, and they put a little spacer in here so the bolt works right, or put a short bolt in here. Well, if you put a short bolt in here, it's going to be even more detrimental than if you put a spacer and a bolt on this side, because all that twisting force is just holding on to this little pressed control arm. So in the factory, they had a piece that is very similar to this. And this would have been stitched onto the bottom of the control arm to box it. And what we're going to be doing is duplicating or replicating what they did in the factory to be able to box this so that we can handle the twisting forces properly with this car. So I'm going to take you through the process of how we should put this kit in. I've moved my jack where I am under the center of the housing, and I can actually access those arms. And on this side, you can see I took the bolts out, and I am choosing to do one side at a time. So we'll take this over to the bench and talk about that. From the factory, the bolts that went through to hold the sway bar were just over halfway up on here, and they were at the back. So what I've chosen to do is there's a factory little notch in here where it straightens out. I'm marking this here and here, and I'm going to split the difference with where this is centered. Now, originally, these had a stitch weld on them here, and then they had 2 stitches here and 3 on the back part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the sandblaster, and I'm just going to sandblast, measure out and sandblast where my stitches are so that I can weld it on easier without dealing with junk, as well as I'm just going to sandblast around this edge to clean the junk off so I can get these bushings out easier. I have this all blasted up. I ended up blasting all the way to the bottom because this had a lot of undercoating in it, and so when this is final prep, they're going to have to shoot paint inside of here when that gets done. As well, I did a little bit more sandblasting on these, so when they push out, they should come out really easy. Now, as you can see, I have it centered up and laid out, and you can see the grind marks on here. The reason I've done that is because this is zinc coated, and so if you end up welding on this without removing the zinc coating, I have it removed on the bottom, on the edge, and on the top here. I'm not sure if you can see the line of where the zinc stops and starts. You want to grind it back enough, because if you end up welding that, you're going to end up inhaling heavy metals. You'll end up with a serious medical condition called metal fume fever, and you don't want that. So even though I've cleaned this off, I am going to have all my ventilation going, and I'm going to be very cautious that I'm not breathing in the garbage coming off of this weld. I'm ready to weld it up, so we will get this tacked up and weld it out. I almost forgot. I have a bolt here. Now, with the way these are built, if this spacing here, if this gets squished or bent, well, the bolts that are supposed to go through aren't going to fit through. And so if you don't make sure that this fits, you want these to be able to fit in there freely all the way to the bottom. When you go to put the bolts through and that's welded in and those aren't big enough, you're going to have some problems. This one's welded out, and I am going to have to locate and drill where I want the holes to go through. It's turning out pretty nice. The one thing that I learned off of this one, even though I cleaned off the zinc, if you see here, I could have cleaned it back a little further. You could really see it smoking. As well as when I sandblast the next one, I'm sandblasting underneath this edge too, because there was a lot of burning happening under there. Now we have to center where this is. I'm going to measure it out from the end, but as well, just to double check, I have a set of dividers here. I'm sure that you can rig something up to transfer this. But what I'm going to do is put the set of dividers in here and keep them tight with one hand. And then if I run these up and down on the inside there, I'm going to be able to transfer the marks onto the outside. That's going to get me roughed out anyways. Love that thick undercoating. I did some figuring on the depth of where the internal structure goes down to. And if I take a straight edge and line up across the center of these two stamped holes in this, it lines up pretty much exactly where I could easily have those bolts. So I've center punched the mark where I have that marked out using the divider. And I am just going to poke these holes in here. I'm using the press to get these bushings out. Now, I am sure that there's lots of other tricks, maybe U-joint, C-clamp, whatever, to get these out. It'd be great if you share what you would rather do to get them out. But what I'm doing is, first of all, this is just an old front wheel drive wheel bearing out of something. I have no idea what, but it fits around that really well. So when I push it, it's just going to push into this. This is just something I machined, I believe, another press piece. I'm not even going to bother pulling it out of there, but I machined it for some other job that I was working on. And all I want to do, it actually fits perfectly, is line it up. And I believe in, when you're working with stuff, pressing it in and out, to lube it up. Now, we'll look at the new bushing when it goes in, but this has got a stepped bushing in it, so it doesn't take that much travel to actually get these out. And I'll show you what I mean when we get over to the bench. This piece, though, usually they pop out really quite easily. So if you notice, this is bending down a little bit. You can support in between here, but all I'm going to do is grab a hammer. I guess that's another note. Make sure that you measure the distance on these when you're doing this in between the two sides. Now this is under pressure right now, a lot of pressure, and all you got to do is give it a little bit of a tap, 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 and it's going to relax itself. Pretty normal to be that way, coming apart. And again, it's bending down a little bit. You just got to let it relax itself. So that bushing is actually out of there. This press piece will be just lightly stuck in. Simple as that. We'll take a look at the bench, what I was talking about, the steps. So if we take a look at the old bushing, you can see there's a step in here. Probably easier to see on the new bushing. But what does that mean? Well, if you go to attempt to push these in backwards, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Because on this side here, I have a lot of play. This side here, it presses in. So you got to make sure when you're pushing these in, that you're pushing them in from the right side. Before we attempt to do any of that though, we're going to take, and I'm just going to clean this up inside here with a little flapper wheel, really lightly, and get it ready to go. Back over at the press here, I picked a smaller wheel bearing piece that receives this better because it's going to give it more support, as well as I picked a different top press piece that'll push on this outer ring. So we're just going to put this in the right direction and lube. Spritz it up with lube. Now that I have that started, before I measured, or before I started taking these out, I measured, and both sides of this and the end that I could get into the car was exactly 0.165. So as I push this in, I'm going to want to eyeball, keep this straight, and tap this in the direction it needs to go to keep my spacing at that 165. And right now, I can't get it in there. So I want to just give this a little bit of a relax as I push it in. And that fits in perfect. Fluke that one out. This energy suspension kit fits multiple vehicles. So what I've done is I follow the instructions and I lay them out and label it so I know where I'm grabbing parts from. If you look up in the top right corner, those bushings up there or spacers are for different applications. What you got to do, lay it out and put it together the way you got it laid out. That way you don't have to think while you're doing it. All right, now with this piece here, I have it ready and I'm going to be grabbing the bushing. Now, these come with lots of lube and I usually am not very shy about using this lube. So, even though this bushing isn't going to be having any issues with this turning, the middle is usually what's going to turn. It's designed that way. I'll take a real thin layer of that lube, stick it on, makes it easier to put in, as well as how this bushing was stepped. This is also got a step in it. So if you lube it up nice like that, when you go to put it in, they pretty much push in by fat guy. But anyway, I'm going to give that a little bit of a tap yet with a dead blow hammer and push it in the rest of the way. When we put this in the car, the appropriate bushing is going to be installed. And then the center bushing, we'll stick those in. Now these, sometimes they're a little tougher. You can put them in a vise, put them in, tap them in with a hammer, whatever. But the key is make sure you get lots of lube in the grooves of this. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a squeak, squeak, squeak problem. None of us want that. So once I get this assembled here, I am going to continue on with the rest of the bushings and get the other side done. I totally forgot to have the bench talk to you about why I pull these out one at a time. Well, first of all, I like to pull them out one at a time because it makes it way easier to get it back in than if the diff is all hanging there. Now, these are going to come out again to be painted, and you'll see that that isn't run up all the way, but I never tighten these up until the weight is on the wheels, because then your suspension doesn't have to take time to settle out. You put it on the wheels, you tighten your suspension, your control arms, and your car is ready to go. It's going to be close to ride height as you're going to get, and you're not going to have to wait for the car to settle down and figure out what height it's going to be. I thought I could address this top end because we can't do this in the press. We couldn't do it in a vise, nothing, because this one's in the diff. So what I've done is I actually have taken my ball joint press tool, which you could do this with a bolt and some pipe, but this is a ball joint press tool piece, but it doesn't fit really well. And if I start pressing, it's going to come over the top. So this is an old wheel bearing, and I just have it here to hold it centered. And then I have my ball joint press piece, which you could use a washer and a bolt and a piece of flat plate. And I'll just put that down there for now and push this through with this ball joint press stuff. Make sure you got your hearing protection on if you're using air tools. Now this won't press out all the way, it'll get started. And I'm not sure if you noticed beforehand, I had cleaned up the outer edge of this. We'll give it a shot here to get it going, and then we'll have to switch to something smaller that'll push through. Okay, I'll go grab something smaller and we'll get that set up. I have another press piece in here from the ball joint press kit. You could use a washer or whatever. I don't know if this is going to work because it's actually pretty close, same size as that. We'll give it a go. Yeah, that's a no-go. I'm gonna have to find something bigger. Second time around, I just put a big flat washer underneath that same press piece. I don't have it lined up perfect. Hopefully this goes. Now I'm gonna have to find something that's a little bit better sized. I'll go dig through my junk. Okay, trying this again. This washer is actually smaller than the end here. So if I was to push on this, it'd probably turn sideways. So I welded a 1/2 inch washer so I can stick a 1/2 inch bolt through, because that's thread size here. And we'll give it a go. We'll see how that goes. It's almost out. We'll see what this does. Oh, I guess it's going to take a little more than that. My receiver collar wasn't deep enough, but this is just a tin bushing. I don't know. There we go. And that's how we get that one out. Couple more options you could do is you could get the bushing out. I do have another video on how to do that. But you could, once you have this out, just take and beat the crap out of that with a hammer, bust it in, and you should be able to get it out. Or you could actually use, this is a bushing splitter. And if you're doing this, you could actually use an air hammer with a bushing splitter and split this out as well. But it's out. And what we want to look at is, you can see on this tapered step on here. It's almost to it on here too. But if you were to look at these really close, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. These actually aren't just a total solid step. There is actually a taper in here. So when you go to put this in, it's gonna stop where that taper starts. And that would be exactly the same of how this one is. So you could drive this in with a driver. I don't have a whole bunch of room to do that, so I'm actually gonna pull this in as well. Make sure you lube both these parts up really good. I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a tappity tap to get it started, just so it stays there for me. Because we have limited room, it's going to be a little tougher to actually get this in without having to change some of the setup that we have. And honestly, I think this might have actually been easier to get going if a person was to use a bolt through the center with different spacers than what I'm fighting with right now. So I think we're hitting our, yeah. I'll have to recenter this and pull it in the rest of the way. We'll get that set up. All right, all I did is just center this up over the piece, and we'll pull it in till it bottoms out in here. In this operation, I feel like I have 10 thumbs. You need more hands to do it. This washer, I took this all off, added this washer. It's the exact thickness when I measured on this side to make it where when it bottoms out, this is going to be in the perfect depth. And it is home. She's good to go. I'll finish assembling this one, get the other one done, and then we'll come back. I'd just like to point this out. These bushings that came out of here, if you look how off-centered that is, it's stretched way out. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because when I went to put these bolts in up here, the pinion angle was quite a bit down, and I had to jack the pinion angle up quite a bit to get these bolts in up here, and it's crazy how much the pinion angle changed on this thing to get those in and stayed that way. So those bushings definitely were affecting the pinion angle, possibly causing this car to have pretty good vibration. I have everything loosely together. We don't want to tighten any of this until the weight is on the wheels. Right now the rear suspension's completely hanging. And there is also more work that we have to do to the back of this. So there is this set of spacers, and there's quite a bit of space on this bar. I don't know when the weight's on if this is going to come up a bunch, but the space isn't even. I think though, at the tight spot here, I could probably only get a couple of these in, so I'm probably going to be putting one on either side and tightening this up. Now, these top bushings up here, I don't know, I think that struggling with the ball joint press, it worked fine. It might have been quicker. I've done these before, always with a ball joint press, but as I was kind of thinking about a DIY thing, it might have actually been quicker if I would have squished this together with some pipe and washers and so on to make these go in easier. It's less fumbling. I didn't need 3 hands to do it. So I didn't do that, but next time I think I'm gonna probably machine some pieces, because I end up doing quite a bit of these bushing swaps in these cars, just never have done it. Anyways, this, as far as I'm concerned, turned out really good. I would definitely be buying this kit again to do it, because it does look really stock. And you know, everything's loose like I say, but the reason why is this is all coming out to get painted, but there's another really important upgrade, and we're gonna do another video on that. I think it's very important for the next upgrade, because we're spicing up what's under the hood, and we actually want this car to not just be a tire burner, but actually be quick as well. So hopefully you look at the videos that we've done of the upgrades so far and watch for the upcoming videos. Really appreciate the time you take to watch these things. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment, especially if you have any questions, just ask. I'll do my best to help.